everyone, Charles Wilson here from the DC Democratic Party. I want to welcome you back to Statehood Speaks, the DC Democratic Party's podcast where we talk to local and national Democrats about why they are Democrats and what issues are important to them. I'm super excited that today's special guest is none other than Jason Rae. He is the secretary for the DNC. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for all the work that you do.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, you've seen the podcast before, and we start off asking our guests the same question. Why are you a Democrat?
It's a great question. I wish I could tell you this was the pivotal moment or what happened that made me feel like that. I think it was just something growing up in rural Northwest Wisconsin, that the Democratic Party was just always there for working people, that they were the party that was standing up to make sure that we had what we needed to get by in a rural space like that. My dad started working in a manufacturing plant when he was just in middle school and has still been there ever since. My mom started working at McDonald's and a receptionist at our clinic in town. And I always just saw the Democratic Party standing up for working people. And there was just something intrinsically about it that I saw, and I got involved and said, this is the party that I want to be with. This is a party that is fighting for people like me, that is fighting for everyday Americans to have a fair access, fair opportunities. And it really showed me that. And the reason I got involved with the party with it was because I saw the party as a way to get great people elected, that I could elect people who shared my values, who wanted to go and do the work locally and at state level or federally. And I wanted to be a part of helping get those folks to those positions.
Great. So you are the youngest elected member to the DNC. At the time, you were 17 years old. And you touched on this in your previous response, but what inspired you to get involved in politics so early? And what motivated you to stay committed to the party?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And for me, it was kind of a two-part with it. In high school, I was really fortunate and blessed to have an opportunity to move to D.C. actually for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And work on the floor of the U.S. Senate as a Senate page for Senator Herb Kohl. And it was an awesome experience. And I left D.C., came back to my small rural community in northern Wisconsin and said, I got to get back to D.C. I got to find a way to be engaged in politics even more so. And when I looked around, and I had been active in my county party in northern Wisconsin as a county party vice chair. I created our first county party website. And I looked around the room, though, and I was the youngest person in that room by decades. And I said, we need more young people at the table. And I actually wanted to be a delegate for the National Convention in 2004 in Boston that year. And the state party told me that I couldn't, that I was too young, that you had to be 18 to be a convention delegate. But they said, come to our state party convention. We're doing some great work. And I said, well, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're electing DNC members. And I read the DNC charter and bylaws, and there wasn't an age requirement in there to be a DNC member. So I said, I'm going to take a run for this. Then Democratic governor had two people that he had wanted, but I really wanted to run on a statement of more young people having a voice at the table, being involved in the DNC. So I ran on a slogan of representing America's next generation, and really everything that I have done at the DNC since then, in addition to just working to get Democrats elected up and down the ballot, has really focused on how do we increase opportunities for more young people to come into the party, to open up those avenues so that they know that they have a home here, that they belong in the Democratic Party.
Great. Can you share the defining moment for you or experience that solidified your decision to take on a larger leadership role within the DNC?
Yeah, after having been elected as a state DNC member for a number of terms, it was really in 2016 after that presidential election that I decided I needed to step forward and do something more. That it was one thing to just be active in my state party, and show up for Democrats locally, in Milwaukee and across Wisconsin. But after that loss in 2016, I said it really is, if someone's going to do something and if they feel a passion, they got to step up and do it. And I said, there's lots of things that we need to do as a party. Mm-hmm. And I looked around and I said, well, if I'm not willing to step up and do it, then who is? So that was kind of my moment to say, taking on a leadership role and running for secretary of the DNC, really focused on somebody's got to do this work, and ran for it. It was a hard-fought campaign. I was honored to be elected by DNC members from across the country to serve and to get to continue serving in that role because there's so much important work in front of us.
Great. And so with your time with the DNC, you've been a strong advocate for LGBTQ issues. What drives your passion for this work? What wakes you up in the morning excited about doing this type of work?
So much of it. For me, it's really about the people that I get to interact with and meet in this. And I think for me in particular, I'm in a unique position in my role as secretary because I really get to engage and build really deep, meaningful relationships with our 450 DNC members from across the country, and I get to know them, and I'm really inspired by the work that they are doing each and every day, and that's what actually keeps me kind of going in this. That's what keeps me excited because I get to see that feeling. I have one DNC member, for example. We've got an election in Wisconsin coming up on April 1st, and she's bringing a whole bunch of folks to Wisconsin this weekend to canvass and help get out the vote for us. And like just hearing her story about why she's doing this, and seeing the interactions and the work that's being done, that's what kind of inspires me. But also, I would say on top of that, it's really seeing the party stand up and fight for people like me. It's seeing the party stand up for working people. It's seeing opportunities made for more young people to get into leadership. And in particular, one of the things that I always think about is when it comes to the LGBTQ community for me, and being a member of that community and seeing a party that has consistently worked to support and advance rights for not only LGBTQ people, but all people across the board. And I want to keep being a part of that, of making improvements in people's lives.
Great. So, what advice do you have for young activists who, when they say, "When I grow up, I want to be like Jason Rae"?
I don't know that anybody says that. I would say, for young people, the first part is don't feel like you have to wait your turn in line necessarily for it. I remember when I ran for DNC, people were like, "Oh, so and so's going to run before you. This person's been waiting 20 years. It's their spot for this open seat." And I was like, "There's no one tapping you on the shoulder someday saying, 'Now's your time. Now's your time to go do it.' Just put it. If you have a vision, if you've got a sense of values, if you care about something, go and put yourself out there to do it." I think with that, I would also say, and this sounds, I'll say nerdy, because I'm a nerdy guy. Let's be real, Charles. I am. But like, know the rules and bylaws of an organization you're getting involved in, whether it's a local party, a state party, the national party. You'd be surprised at when you understand the processes, the rules, you can understand actually how to create change within the system, or you can figure out ways to help adjust the system as well and figure out how do you enhance an organization. Say like, there's this process over here, it's not working. We got to fix this. But knowing that rules and process really can go a long way. It's how I actually got elected to our state's platform committee before I ever got elected to the DNC, because I saw that there was a spot for a youth representative on it, and our state chair had never appointed anybody, and she said she hadn't because nobody ever asked for that spot. But I found it and said, "Hey, I want to do this. I want to be involved in this party." And it's understanding those ways are easy ways to kind of plug in, understand, and then you can make a huge difference.
Great. So the political environment has changed here in DC. What advice can you give Democrats, especially those in deep blue states like DC? Advice on like how to protect democracy and advance policy even in this environment.
I'd start with the idea that we still need your voice louder than ever. That I think sometimes when you're in those deep blue states, you think like, oh, I can maybe step back, or I don't need to reach out to my local elected officials because they're already with me. They still need to hear from you. They still need to know where you are on things. And I think that's the first and foremost. And then I think, especially those in those deeper blue states like DC and others, I think have a real opportunity to help those of us coming from purple and battleground states. Like I live in Wisconsin now, and we've got important elections coming up for our state Supreme Court and superintendent of public instruction. And we are now living in a virtual age. It used to be that you could canvass on a weekend and maybe make a trip of it to a battleground state, go down to Virginia, for example, and go help out. But now you can be engaged anywhere with phone calls, text messaging, writing postcards to voters. So I would say to those in deep blue states, we need you. Those of us in battleground states need you. We are sometimes burned out. We have election after election. We are always the target, and your voice and your energy can really make a difference. So, especially as we're heading into this next election cycle already this fall, those in DC, we need you in Virginia. We need you in New Jersey. We need you in states all across this country where there are important races. Your voice, your effort, your energy can help excite people. I know that when we get folks from out of state who come into Wisconsin, for example, to do work, it inspires me because I see the impact. I see that people across the country are paying attention, that they're caring, that they want to be a part of this movement. And it just gives me that energy. I know it gives my fellow battleground state residents that energy to say, hey, if these folks can come and help us, we can be out showing up to knocking on doors and making a difference.
Trust me, we have no shortage of volunteers in DC ready to get involved in some out-of-state race.
I love it. I think that's great.
Let's see, and of course you'll edit this one, but given the challenges we're facing with voter suppression, misinformation, extremism, where do you see the Democratic Party in the next 5 or 10 years? Like, how do you see us evolving?
That's a really great question, Charles. And I don't know that I have an answer for it fully today. I think it's really going to be incumbent upon what happens over the next few weeks, months, years ahead. I think we as a party are really at a pivotal crossroads right now and figuring out what we want to do. We, as you and all your listeners know, we don't hold a branch of government in DC at the moment. We don't have any of those federal spots. So I think where I think of us as a party and the challenges that face us, really figuring out how to be an opposition party in this next period and really stand up and push back and use our voice. And I think that when we talk about the party, I know people often think of it as either the DNC or the elected officials in DC. I think of the party as this larger element of all of us as activists and leaders in our communities. And I think when I am thinking of the future in the next 5 to 10 years, it's about how do all of us use our voices to stand up and push back. We see it every day. This administration is trying to flood the zone right now with disinformation each and every day. They're trying to outdo the day before and cause us to get burned out, cause us to get tired, cause us to stop paying attention to the news. Right. And frankly, we can't give up in that. We need to be paying even more attention now than before. But I think with that, it really is important that we are focused on, one, building our bench of candidates, supporting candidates at a local level right now, who are going to be our future candidates for Congress, for Senate, for other races across this country. Whether it is a red state, a blue state, or a purple state, we need to be building our bench of candidates. We need to be focused then on how are we building the infrastructure of our party? How are we creating a long-term piece? And I know this is something that Chair Martin is really focused on, is saying that this isn't just about that next election that's coming up, that we can't just be focused on a gubernatorial race in Virginia and New Jersey and then turn our attention to 26. We've got to be thinking about elections for the next 5 to 10 years and saying, where's the electorate going? How do we as a party position ourselves to engage? How do we show up and build a relationship so that it isn't showing up in a state, and we hear this often, 3 weeks before an election and saying, hey, we need your support, now. But it's how do we show up and build a relationship so we understand where the voters are, that we're constantly talking to them and really creating what has been termed a permanent campaign, that it is about that real-time engagement. And I think as we look at everything that's going to come at us, that if we are continuing to build that permanent campaign right now to really show up, to be plugged in, I think we can really have a difference. But look, make no mistake about it. It is a tough road ahead of us for Democrats right now. But I am fired up and I'm excited by the energy I'm seeing. I mean, we just won this week special elections in Pennsylvania in a deep Republican district. Yeah. I mean, it shows that voters are with us. Democrats are winning. People are with us. But look, we face strong headwinds at the national level. 26 is going to be tough, but we've got to win back the House. We've got to add seats in the Senate. And then we've got to turn right away to 2028 and, and elect a Democrat. And I think we're going to have a great primary process that's going to go through, and we're going to have a lot of discussions, and I think we're going to see a lot of energy. The thing that I think is most important in this is that while the road may appear daunting, we can't give up right now. The American people are depending upon us as Democrats. They're depending upon us to show up, to use our voice, to fight back, to push back, to build this permanent campaign, and to set ourselves up to win in 25, 26, 27, 28, and beyond.
Great. So, I can't call a podcast Statehood Speaks and not ask our guests a question about DC statehood. How can we advance this conversation across America? You live in Wisconsin. How do we advance the whole DC statehood movement to make it a national conversation?
I think asking those of us who live outside of DC to use our voices and elevate it as an issue. I first got really focused on statehood myself during an internship in college. I worked at People for the American Way, and one of their big issues was DC statehood, and I actually attended a couple hearings on the Hill during that and really learned about it. So I used my voice then to come back home and talk about it and to say, hey, here's something. I think most people don't know it. As much as we think that everyone is paying attention, they don't. So I think when you look at, I'll use just the DNC as an example, and you guys are really great about it when you come to DNC meetings and talking about it and uplifting that. But asking other DNC members when they go back into their communities to say, hey, what are we doing? How are you elevating this issue so that folks know about it and know that it is taxation without representation? Know that you don't get to decide locally everything that's going on in your own community, that you are bigger than many states population-wise are. And just having people talk about that and remind folks what's at stake, I think is the biggest thing. And I know, Mr. Chair, you've got my commitment to continue as I travel across the country with this party, advancing this issue and making sure that we continue to put statehood for the district as a top priority.
Great, great. Thank you so much. So you have any final thoughts or final words for our guests today?
Well, I would just say keep up the work. It's going to be tough these next few weeks, months, and years ahead. But we have never, as a party, let difficult situations put us down. To me, it has only made me stronger in the work that we do. That let's look up, let's look forward, and together we can make a difference in this country, in this community, in this party.
Great. Jason, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciated you taking time out to talk with us. And anytime you want to come back, please let us know.
Will do, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great day.